Welcome to Staring at the Abyss. I'm your host, Richard Gerlach. With me, as always, is Matt Brandenburg.
Hey, I'm coming from a rest stop in Kansas, and there's a cool spider web around here.
And discovering the hidden RV is Vitlame Mist.
Yeah, you don't want to go down there. Nope.
I like that you said Arby's. I
did say Arby's.
I was like, Fit May discovering the double roast beef. Which kind of works for this story.
It does, a little bit. Fun fact, I've actually never been to an Arby's.
What? How? How is that possible?
There aren't really many up in the Northeast.
Oh, well. It's been a while since I've been to them, but it's a shame.
Well, today...
I just can't say that I've been there ever, so...
Well, today we're going to be discussing No Exit by Orrin Gray, who surprisingly we haven't covered on this podcast yet, but he's definitely one of the best working short fiction writers in horror right now.
He is. He does some really cool, movie horror, if that's the best way to describe it. Not that this story is that, but a lot of his other stuff deals kind of with that. I swear... Oh man, I listened to one of his pseudopods, and it was all about a movie theater and there's something crazy happening there, and some of his other stories. So yeah, he's awesome.
He's great, and this story is a quick read, and you can find it for free online at Nightmare Magazine. You can also find it in the anthology called Lost Highways, and also in Best Horror of the Year, Volume 11.
Yes, that's the one.
You can find the story pretty much anywhere. And I recommend giving it a read. It's honestly it took me maybe 15 minutes to read this whole thing. It's a quick read. It's pretty short.
Yeah. The great planning of myself was I was like, I'll read it today.
I mean, I read it a while ago, and then I reread it again this morning. And I was like, oh, this is a quick and breezy read.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it goes down an interesting path.
It really does.
It gets pretty dark and grisly as it goes on.
Yeah.
I'm excited to dive into it. But I'd say before we fully get into it, we should give our favorite highway rest stop recommendations. Which, fun fact, when I was in college, I worked at a subway and a highway rest stop that someone was murdered in.
Nice.
There was a subway rest stop?
Well, and then we have a chain called Subway, which is like sandwiches. And I made sandwiches at a highway rest stop, and someone was murdered in that rest stop.
So it's not like one of in this. So did they have more than one restaurant in there?
It was a Subway, a Burger King, and a Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So kind of one of those bigger ones, not one of the cool, scary ones that you go to that are literally just a bathroom and a park bench.
I mean, a person was murdered in the bathroom in this rest stop.
Yeah, but yours sounds fancy. Like what we read in this story and ones that I've been into are very always creepy. Like the tile. Everything is tiled, and it's this weird, dirty beige, and the lights are never fully working. And there's usually, like he describes in this story, but there's usually a map, and you can always tell where people have touched it because it's been worn away at certain spots. And then there's a vending machine that has candy and drinks from 15 years ago in it. And then when you get out, there's park benches. And there's always some strange family that I don't know what they're doing, but they're there. And then there's some old guy walking with a dog. These are the rest stops that I go to.
Yeah, that's how basically I've always pictured it. You've seen it from movies and whatever slanted information you get from that. And you're you don't get these fancy rest stops. You don't get these chain restaurants just sitting there in the middle of fucking nowhere.
This one had a gas station too. It was the gas station of the Subway, Dunkin' Donuts, and Burger King.
Yeah.
See, I can see this happening here in Iceland because we actually do have that here. But in the middle of godforsaken land in America, no, I can't see it.
Now, like, what I will say to go along with you, Rich, is like outside of Chicago, like when you're on the highways around Chicago, they have what they call oases, which are giant bridges above the highway that have all the chain restaurants in them. So those ones are nice and fancy. You can go in there, get, I don't know, your McDonald's or some random pizza thing, and then go. But then the rest,
beef.
You get your double roast beef and you're good. It's just sitting like a rock in your stomach when you're driving. But then, like, the rest of the rest stops that I've been to are all the creepy ones where you're like, man, things happen here that I don't want to know about. I just want to get in, walk on the sticky floor, and get out.
Yep.
It's always, there's always like trash bags on the urinal. There's always like 3 sinks there just running for no reason. It's an adventure every time.
Yeah, honestly, the bathroom was super grungy. Despite the murder even happening there, it was just a grungy bathroom to begin with. The murder just made it extra creepy.
Yeah, just add it to the flavor.
Like one time I was working and someone had written in the bathroom above the urinal that was it was in pen, a marker, and it said, "Stuck here for the night, looking for big hairy men. If interested, go to parking lot and rub your tummy."
And you know, when you go there, a clown is waiting for you.
Yeah.
And like I was a big hairy guy then. I'm still a big hairy guy now. So like when I was doing the trash that night, I was like super paranoid, looking over my shoulder and like super creeped out after reading
Don't
that.
scratch your tummy. Don't scratch your tummy.
It's just at that moment that your stomach just itches like terrible, and you're like, God, I can't do it.
I remember when we went to Florida and we were driving around. I think I was driving back to the place we were staying, and my husband and my little brother, they really needed to go to the bathroom. So I think my dad stopped at I think it was a Wendy's, and they just ran inside and decided to, take a leak. But the rest of us just waited in the car. But then they came back and they had like looks of horror on their faces. And I was like, and I just looked at them and was like, what happened? Did you see anything interesting? And they said like the stalls were nasty as fuck. Like one had actually smeared shit everywhere. And because they had to pee so bad, they ended up peeing in the sinks.
Oh no!
So that surprises me partly because Wendy's bathrooms are usually immaculate.
I mean, but like I said, this
you're
was
in
Florida. Yeah.
So I feel like that might be the exception to the rule. Is that you're in Florida?
Yeah, I think so. But it turned them off Wendy's for a long time.
That's fair.
Understandable. That's fair.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Because I can tell you, if I'm on a road trip and I gotta do a roadside poop, I'm looking for a Wendy's.
Very specific.
Very specific.
I just go wherever I can go. Not like on the side of the highway for number 2. I'm not gonna do it number 2 on the side of the highway. But
not gonna take a hole.
No, I'm always like driving and I'm thinking, I'm like, man, somebody would just know what I'm doing.
Somewhere out there, people are driving and someone's just thinking, you know what? I think Matt is taking a shit outside the road right now.
There he is, just sitting in there, going to town.
Pooping away.
Just pooping away. And like pooping the wrong way, so I'm facing the highway. I need something to look at.
You need something to look at. You can't just void your mind like you're voiding your bowels. Just get it over with.
Nope.
You need some scenery to take in while he does the deed.
And my luck is because most of the time, highways are kind of up and there's usually a little bit of like a hill down. Is like my luck would be I'd be going and I would like slip and fall and roll down and it would just everything going out at once and I'm rolling and people are watching. Like only
a
that.
worst case scenario.
So moral of the story is I'll hold it till I find a rest stop or a bathroom anywhere.
Understandable.
Yep.
Well,
people
I
are
mean,
like, what's happening?
I had to hold in my pee for like 6 hours one time, but that was only because I was stuck on a glacier and I couldn't go anywhere. So I had to wait until we had to get down from the glacier.
Couldn't just like let it go and warm up.
Are you kidding? I probably would have fallen into a fucking crevice. It's my fucking luck.
What happened? I was just going to the bathroom.
Yep. Did you crouch correctly? No, I didn't.
Well, that being said, to take a hard turn away from the poop top, the show will come back anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
I ended up watching a horror movie for the first time in a while over the weekend.
Oh.
Ooh.
And I saw the Cellar, which is a new Irish haunted house movie.
Is it any
Nice.
good?
I quite enjoyed it. It does nothing new with the tropes, and that's kind of a negative towards it. But despite it being very tropey, I had a lot of fun with it. I also brought Elijah Cuthbert back into the Elisha Cuthbert back into the horror movies. She was in like House of Wax, and all those teen slashers in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And she's the mom in this movie now.
She's just so funny.
And the movie's pretty much like a family moves into a old house that has weird symbols carved into the walls above the doors. And they don't really care or seem to pay any mind to it, which, like, that's kind of your typical haunted house trope.
True.
But while they're away, while the parents are away, their two children, the daughter and the son, are trying to figure out what's going on with the house, especially because the daughter one time walked into the cellar and the door closed and locked behind her, and they had to like force the door open because it wouldn't open on its own. So like the daughter knows something weird's happening there. They find a record, and the record is the voice of a man who is reciting a math equation and then just starts counting numbers. And the next thing we know, the daughter is hypnotized and she calls her mom because she's scared, but she can't stop walking. And she keeps on counting as she's walking down the stairs, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Only the counting doesn't stop. And when the mom gets back into the house, the daughter's gone.
Oh.
And then it becomes like the mother trying to find out like who built the house, what was their story, where did her daughter go, how can they find her, and how can they get her back. Spoiler alert for anyone who cares about spoilers. It might involve Leviathan and possibly Baphomet.
Ooh.
And that's all I'll say about the movie. I had a lot of fun with it, especially the third act. They fucking go for it. And it's kind of bonkers, and not like Malignant bonkers. That was a whole different can of bonkers. But this was still kind of bonkers in a really good way. I thought I like it when movies just have a unique idea or a unique take on an older trope, and they just decide to really lean into this idea. And to me, it worked really well.
Nice.
Had some really good scenery and tension by the end too. Especially the last 10 minutes had some really cool what the fuck moments. So I'd recommend it. It's on Shudder right now.
Yeah, I might have to check that out. That sounds kind of fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. It's not like a great movie, but it's a really fun movie, and I don't know, I had a good time with it. But I feel like I might be in the minority because the reviews aren't looking too good for this movie. So take my taste as you will. But that was my big movie for the week. Matt, what about you?
Yes. So, you know what? We'll stick with Shudder. And I think last week or maybe the week before, it doesn't matter. Cursed Films, but season 2 came out recently, and they've done 2 episodes so far. They did Wizard of Oz, and then they did Rosemary's Baby. And they've both been a lot better than the first season. Which I enjoyed the first season, but I don't know. Did either of you watch this?
It wasn't a good season.
I don't
Yeah.
have Shudder.
Oh, all right. Well, then the basic concept of this is they look at movies that have like curses revolving around them. So like they did Poltergeist and covered the whole idea of the corpses and stuff like that. Or they did The Omen and all the people who kind of died mysteriously around this movie and everything like that.
Exorcist too, or?
Yes, they did. I think they did The Exorcist, Omen, Crow, Poltergeist, Twilight Zone the movie, and they might have did one other one that I'm drawing a complete blank on. But then this season they've done Wizard of Oz and Rosemary's Baby, and I'm liking these a lot more because though by the end of the first season of Cursed Films they kind of did away with some of the like. Because I think I'm trying to remember, the first one might have been The Exorcist, and they spent a lot of time with the like people not related to the movie and had nothing to do with the movie, but were exorcists or people who knew about exorcism, and it just turned. And they even did like a fake, maybe fake exorcism on the episode, and it just kind of didn't work for me. But then by the time you kind of got to the end, and they like The Crow was really interesting and heartbreaking. And then Twilight Zone one was extremely heartbreaking because this thing that they cut from John Landis's section revolving around 2 kids and an actor dying on film. That one was really tough to see because they show you that footage and you're just like, holy crap. But anyway, Wizard of Oz was really interesting and fun because it just kind of covered a lot of the stuff that people talk about with that. So obviously the makeup, they put on the Tin Man and how that caused some issues, and then they talked about the Munchkin hanging themselves and like, did that really happen or not really happen? And then it just kind of covered everyone's life, maybe not everyone's life, but little bits of life after the fact and just what happened during that movie, which was really interesting. The Rosemary's Baby one is again a tough one because it ties into everything with the Manson murders and how that all sort of happened around this time. And also what like there's a little bit of Satanism with this movie regarding who they tied to the movie and who Roman Polanski was hanging out with and who Sharon Tate was hanging out with. But then it just was just this interesting look at everything that happened around that time in this movie. And the craziest thing is there is in Rosemary's Baby, if you remember, there is another young girl that I think was the original tie to the neighbors that wanted, and she ended up committing suicide, and then Mia Farrow's character obviously gets pregnant and everything like that. Well, that actress, I can't remember what her name is a character. She's still alive. She was in, I think, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. She was in all these different movies in the 60s and 70s, and she's still alive now. And the story is that she like shot her husband a couple of years ago, and she went to prison, and now she's out, and she's with this other guy because this other guy bought a car that was featured in Playboy that she was involved with. And so like they're together, but this woman's crazy. And I mean, like it's and crazy as in like funny crazy for myself. She's actually kind of has a sad, I think she has dementia and it's really rough and everything like that. But just when you see her on film, you're just like, this is really crazy. And they need a story because she like her ex-husband's still alive. And they talk about this thing about getting shot, and she doesn't remember shooting him. And it was like this just really weird reason why she shot him. And she is this really like over the top person on film, even in this interview. So like I want to see something about her. That would be really cool. And I wish I could remember her name. But anyway, that was my Shudder watch for the week, was Cursed Films.
All right. And Vitlamay, I know you don't have a Shudder watch, but was any movie that you saw this week you'd recommend?
Yeah, I actually finished watching Choose or Die yesterday.
How was it? Starting Choose.
I actually enjoyed it. It's kind of like
Is it better than the Black Mirror one that they did?
It's similar. I can't remember much from the Black Mirror episode though, but it had this kind of like the Ring feel to it.
Oh, cool.
Just a little bit. And yeah, the characters are really nice, and I like the end twist with the big boss battle. It was nice. No, there is literally a big boss battle. It's just called the boss level. You need to finish the boss level.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so for those who haven't seen this, it's on Netflix. It's about this really old retro game that you would play. Like it was kind of like a choice-based game, like a fantasy choice-based game. Like you got questions, you were supposed to choose which of these you were supposed to do, and whatever you chose, it ended with disaster. either upon you or upon someone you love.
Oh, crazy.
So yeah, that was a kind of a crazy thing. And this girl who is like an programmer, but like a dropout or out of university, she tries to figure out what is happening with this video game, because the whole reason why she enters this kind of game is because there is supposed to be a prize at the end. Like a cash prize, and she's desperate need of some cash because her mother, she's still grieving the loss of her son and her brother, and she's taking crack and just not doing well, and the girl is trying her best to support both of them. So you can definitely feel the motivation that she has. And Asa Butterfield is in this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's funny what my husband said when we were watching it. He just said, like, you know what? He's basically a discount Elijah Wood. And it cracked me up. I was like, well, I mean, he has the eyes. I can give you that. He has those big doughy eyes, but he's no Elijah. Don't discredit Elijah.
I love Elijah Wood.
I love him too. He's one of my favorites. He's one of my first crushes.
He's a really big horror fan.
Yes.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, he owns Spectre Vision.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Cool. So yeah, it's on Netflix. I definitely recommend that people check it out. It was a lot of fun. It went to unexpected terms.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
I have to check that one out. I have to see it with my grandparents tonight, so maybe they'll give me something to watch while they go to sleep.
There you go.
Well, besides that, I also finished the new Eric LaRocca novella, We Can Never Leave This Place.
Oh,
nice.
I haven't finished that one yet.
Did you start it yet?
I've started, yeah. Like I'm on the first pages, but I was like, yeah, this is something I need to finish like ASAP.
It is a surreal read. It's really good. I think it's his best work so far.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people have been saying.
It's hard to describe because it's very like...
It's really dependent on grief, isn't it? And like really dysfunctional family dynamic.
And unreliable narrators.
Yeah.
Because like one of the first things we learn about our like character. So the beginning of the story is it's kind of like this post-apocalyptic alternate Earth, and we don't fully know where the story takes place in, but it fully takes place inside an apartment. And the main character's father left days ago to get food, and the mother believes he's coming back. The mother believes he's gone for good. The daughter believes he's coming back. People show up with the husband and they murder him. And then the next part of the book is the husband's funeral. And we learn that the daughter is going to read one of her stories to eulogize her father. And then there's just one text where it says, she's a storyteller. It's another word for liar.
Oh.
And then she is our POV character for the rest of the story, as someone new has moved into their apartment and the mother is becoming more toxic to our narrator. And this new person is kind of controlling her mother and eating all their food and kind of making things worse for them as their apartment kind of falls into disarray and their lives kind of fall apart. I'd compare it. You ever see the movie Mother?
Yes.
No.
I'd compare it to Mother. I'd say it's like a dark fantasy horror version of Mother.
Interesting.
And it's a wild, the climax of that book is fucking wild. Just like the climax of Mother is fucking wild.
Yeah. God.
Well, like when it got to the climax, I was like, this is just a dark fantasy version of Mother, kind of. But no, it's a really good book. I think it's Eric's best piece of work so far, and I would highly recommend it.
Nice.
And I also, just to continue with books, I've been reading the Domination trilogy by S.M. Stirling because I've been trying to get into the POV of how to write like villains, but not even trying to make them sympathetic. Just like write from the POV of the villain and try to tell it like the villain's the good guy, but not make them sympathetic.
Nice.
And Domination's kind of like it's an alternate history story that it's 3 books and it takes place in an alternate world where apartheid in Africa was brought on by a group of people who call themselves Draca, named after Sir Francis Drake, and they pretty much take over all of Africa, enslaving everybody. And they aren't like their society is based around class, like slavery via class. So like if you're a Draca citizen, you're seen as a worthy one. If you're not a citizen of Draca, you're beneath them and you're a slave. And the first book takes place during World War II, when Draca invades Europe during World War II and destroys both Russia and Nazi Germany. And then that's book 1. Book 2 follows them as they conquer and enslave all of Europe. And then book 3 is a Cold War between Draca and America.
Huh.
And spoilers, it ends with Draca destroys the planet and enslaves everybody and becomes a dominant race and dominant society. And the entire book is told from like the point of view of people who are Draca like citizens.
Crazy.
It's pretty good. It's very hard to swallow at times, and I like alternate history, but the alternate history aspect of the story is very weak, and like you can poke holes in the logic of it pretty easily. So it falls apart if you're like trying to take it as a legit alternate history story. But it's still kind of like it's fucking bonkers as it goes on. But that's kind of it for my reading. If you guys have anything else, I know Moon Knight episode 3's out.
It is.
If you guys have anything else, feel free to add it.
Yeah,
Cool.
I actually finished 2 books today.
2 today?
Well, not today. Like this, it's this Easter holiday.
I was gonna say, you're reading fast.
Yeah.
No, that would be amazing, actually. No, I finished Catherine McCarthy's Immortelle.
Oh,
That's
nice.
good.
And yeah, it was really nice. She like is so good at creating this atmospheric sensation basically around the story, and she dives heavily into tradition, and it's like it's one of the best quiet horrors that I've read. I was a little bit disappointed at how the story was weaved through, because the blurb kind of like told you a different thing, and then when you read the story, it didn't really happen.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I was kind of like felt cheated a little bit out of it. But the blurb kind of suggested that it was longer. But when I was like on like page 90 and the story is like 104 pages, I was like, okay, this is not happening then. But I did enjoy it though. It was it was a nice quiet horror, and I decided to, because the weather was actually nice, and I went for a walk to try to test the limit of my toe. And I survived, so that's a good thing.
Yes.
I decided to listen to Medina's Siphon on Audible.
Oh, cool.
What's that?
It was really nice. I really enjoyed it. Not only is he a talented cover artist, he's also a really good writer. Which I actually didn't know he was until I saw him. He was, offering codes to this audiobook, and also he has a short story collection. So I already have a copy of a short story collection, and I need to start reading it, because this one I really enjoyed. It's about this really creepy protagonist who is like a blood analyst, and it kind of like starts off like it's supposed to be like this weird medical story about this guy who's kind of like giving off stalker vibes, and you're like you're not supposed to be rooting for this protagonist. You're like, you feel iffy the minute you start reading in his head, and then suddenly once he breaks a glass of blood vial, he starts to hear voices in his head, and this voice urges him to taste the blood. And from there, it just spirals into this psychological mess, basically, in which he cannot quench this thirst that he has, nor can he shut down the voice that tells him to do that. And he just goes on almost a serial killer killing spree.
Oh.
Into the search of consuming blood. So for me, I felt it was like an interesting take on vampirism, because you don't hear there's nothing mentioned of that, about how he does it and how the voices tell him, like, you have this urge to consume this under normal conventional means. It says, like, that's a voice that basically he hears in his head. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like vampire to me.
Yeah.
But there's no there's no explanation of like how or why he's hearing it. Basically, throughout the story, you understand like what happened to his past, so it might be connected a little bit to that. But other than that, is like, no, he's just a fucked up guy. And I really enjoyed in the beginning of the story. There's this little nod, to vampirism at the beginning, like he's watching a movie in which there's a vampire trying to suck the blood of and I say this in quotation mark, defenseless victim, but she turns it around and stakes him.
Oh, nice.
And just so I'm spoiling everything, because I tend to do that when I'm excited, the ending is basically a mirror of that.
Oh.
And yeah, I really like that. It was really good.
That sounds awesome.
It does.
Yeah, and then you can also get, like, throughout his killing methods, you get an idea why he decided to name the story Siphon.
I am very intrigued.
Yeah.
I think he still has some audio codes left, so you should just check him out.
Yeah.
Will do.
So for me, real quick, let's see, I finished Thomas Ligotti's My Work Is Not Yet Done, which was amazing. It's three, I don't know what you'd call them. One's a novella and then two stories in there, and they're all corporate horror stories. The first one, My Work Is Not Yet Done, is very corporate horror, and it's just usual style, people working in a business that it's unclear what they're doing, other than, how did he describe it? Basically, like, altering documents is their whole purpose, but then there's all this other stuff happening in this business that's unclear. They live in this weird town that's broken and fallen apart. Again, Ligotti. So it's just it's just very much that idea, and our main character we're following around is starting to get pushed out of this like middle management group, and then he has this major plan on finishing this group because they ruined his life, and then he ends up getting sent to some weird other place in which he's not dead, but he's not alive, and he's kind of like a ghost, and he goes around and he does some very, very interesting killings. And it really, what this made me want was a Ligotti Nightmare on Elm Street story. Just because these murders that he comes up with against this other group are very imaginative in a way that would be a Freddy Krueger type of murder. And so I think we need to make this happen. So that just a lot of fun. Definitely if you like Ligotti and weird stuff, or just want plain corporate stuff making fun of working at an office building, this would be good for you. I mean, I was just, even like, once you get the beginning part of My Work Is Not Yet Done is very focused on this weird way that offices work and everyone that works in an office, and it was cracking me up even without the kind of usual horror in that. So if you're looking for anything like that, check it out. The other thing that I started, and I won't go too deep into because I'm not close to being done, was I've picked up another older book due to Monster She Wrote. This one was The Citadel of Fear the book is by Frances Stevens, but it's actually Gertrude Barrows who wrote under the name of Frances Stevens. And this came out in the 20s, I think, and actually was one of Lovecraft's like favorites. He really dug this story, and it's all about, at least where I'm at, is these like sort of Aztec people, but they're not fully Aztec people. And it's these two adventurers. And again, this is the 1920s, so it's very funny. Our one character is an Irishman that everyone's surprised about because of his bright red hair and his ability to fight. So I'm not sure, 1920s, they're taking stereotypes there. And then his buddy is this conniving short person and is only there for the gold, but of course he can't fight and he can't do anything, and our main Irishman character, Boots is his name, is doing everything he can to protect this guy. And they end up across this Aztec culture that, again, is not really Aztec. It's just some other group that worships the sun and worships the moon and worships all these things. And they just so happen to they do sacrifices for this evil other entity. And it's a lot of fun. It's very pulpy. I can see why Lovecraft likes it, because it's very focused on the weird and this cults, and these cults doing obscure things, trying to kill people and worshiping entities that are outside of our universe. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I've really liked that I picked this one up, and I'm having a blast with it.
I have a book recommendation for you, Matt.
Yes.
It's called McTeague by Frank Norris.
Okay.
Caveat before going in, it's very racist.
Okay.
It makes Lovecraft look progressive with how that author writes about race. I guess the ethnicity, really. There's no black
this up now.
There's no black characters in the book. The book itself, I think you'd really enjoy the narrative. It's actually one of my favorite novels, despite the fact of how horribly anti-Semitic the book actually is. It's about greed and how like greed drives people insane and drives people to do awful things, and how like people lose sight of their goals because they get greedy. It's a really good commentary about greed and how greed can corrupt and what greed does to people once you strip away the horrible race aspects of it. I had to read the book in college, and one of my friends, she always tried to find like the good things of it. And like from the start, this book is just a negative stereotype upon negative stereotype. So like like the main character's Teague, and he's a aloof Irishman who wants to be a dentist, but he's too big and clumsy to actually do dental work.
Oh,
So he's like ripping people's teeth out of their mouths with his hands.
Oh,
my
no.
God.
Oh, no, no,
And
no, no.
he wants to buy a giant sign to advertise his dental shop, because he thinks if he can get a sign that advertises him as a dentist, people will take him more seriously.
Solid logic.
Yeah,
And
totally.
every character is a negative stereotype of the ethnicity they represent.
Oh God.
Like, he falls in love with the eccentric German immigrant. In his apartment complex, there's a Mexican woman who is crazy, who cleans their apartments.
Oh God.
There's also the greedy Jew who
No.
opens a pawn shop near the apartment. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I
Like,
think
everything
bad is a light way of putting it.
Yeah.
Like, there's legit a part of the text where my friend gave up because through all these negative stereotypes, she was always trying to like find something positive in the book. And there's a section in the book where the Jewish character marries the Mexican woman, and they have a child. And the narrator tells us directly, the child died because it was mixed blood.
Oh God.
And that's when my friend gave up. She was like, I
That's
can't.
fair.
I can't even, like, there's nothing about this book I can defend. I'm like, yeah, but like I wrote a paper on the book. It's like one of my favorite novels, despite how horrible it is.
Oh
So,
man.
but
Yeah.
I think if you're interested, like, in older kind of forgotten literature that like is kind of influential and has some interesting things it's doing, I could see you liking this book a lot, Matt. Despite the race stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like the one thing I've been having fun with is digging into some of these older, I would say, kind of forgotten books, is just to kind of like see what was written. I mean, I've talked about, I mean, Nightmare Alley, besides that, because that one's not forgotten now, but just some of the other ones that I've been reading, like the Simple Kiss book and the whatever the other one was that I was just reading that I'm drawing a complete blank on, or even this one, the Citadel of Fear, is just, it's a lot of fun just to see and think about like these people writing these books back then and then coming out and them coming out. And now, like at the time, A Beleaguered City, that was the one I was reading. At the time, that was a huge seller. And now we're just like, what is this book? And appreciate that Monster She Wrote kind of pulled these things out. And this one, I mean, it's very pulpy. It's just a lot of fun seeing what came about at the time, and just like, yeah, you kind of have to look at it in its time of what people are looking at and assuming. So like the stereotypes and everything like that, and just kind of be like, oh, okay, our Irishman's first answer is to fight whoever he comes across. It's like, okay, and everyone's like, your hair is so red. Are you for the sun god? And I'm just like, okay, I guess that's something. Or he'll get like something happened and he got embarrassed, and the author was like, well, his already blotchy complexion turned even a deeper shade of red and all this stuff. And it's just like, okay, this is fine. But I'm appreciating it for its time. We'll put it that way.
I mean, a lot of like, I will say, like, stuff like McTeague was bad even for 1890. I think it came out 1898. Like, so stuff you can say, oh yeah, it's part of its time, and other stuff it's like, yeah, like, even for its time, it was bad.
Even for its time, it was rough. Yeah.
So I think that there's a conversation to be had with that too. But I would honestly recommend it if you can stomach the racism, because like, it is a compelling book. I revisit it once every couple of years.
Nice.
It's one of my favorite books, despite how Frank Norris would probably want to kill me if he ever met me in real life. But I think we're ready to go back into this highway rest stop.
Yeah.
Uncover no exit.
Oh man. So like, it's funny, I did not even though having read this before, but I did not expect the surprise ending that it leads to and what that possibly it means.
Are we just going to dive right into spoilers for our audience?
No, we can step in. I didn't say anything. All I'm saying is it's a surprise ending.
I mean, yeah, there is a surprise ending, and like I think like this uses one of my favorite tropes, which is the cult.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love cult stories.
It's one of my favorites too.
It's one of my favorite tropes for people to play with, and
Yes.
I think Orrin Grey did a wonderful job with creating this really horrible cult leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my God. I actually at one point I was like, should I Google this? Does this actually happened? But then when the where Orrin mentioned the narrator's sister Danielle, I was like, oh no, damn. I was actually a little bit disappointed. I was like, damn it, I know my shit about cults, and I should know about this one.
Well, I like talking about that because the way he sets that cult up was smart, because he gives us like that couple of different cults, or at least a couple different events that happened in Kansas that I'm assuming are real, and then brings in this like Spiritus Etium Spirum cult. And so like to do exactly what you're thinking too is like he legitimizes it, so that way once you get to his cult, Orrin Grey's cult, you're like, oh, okay, I can believe this one being real because these other things that happened are somewhat real. I'm thinking. I didn't actually look up to see if these other things happened.
I mean, I feel like it's been inspired by a few different cults, but it's definitely like its own thing.
Oh yeah.
And I love the whole like Western Kansas backdrop, which kind of adds to the creepiness of it. I've never been to Western Kansas, but I imagine it's super creepy.
I will believe that too. I think I've only been to the east side of Kansas, but that was about it. But yeah, I liked the way he sets us all up in the beginning is very just like painting of Kansas and painting of their divorce, her parents' divorce, and this driving back and forth. It's very like it plays into what happens, but at the same time, when you're first reading these couple things, you're just like, I wonder where this is going, and then you get the Danielle missing, and you're like, oh. And even the highway, the fact that they drive on this highway every while, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helps too. Sorry, you go
No. I think I thought it was a little kind of interesting that that they crossed this highway so many times, and not once did the narrator bring up what happened. I mean, come on. I mean, you as I said, wasn't it like she was like 6 when her sister died?
Yeah.
Yeah, and still you would be curious.
Well, I think that goes into that divorce and what her parents kind of are doing, and like where her mind is while she's with them. And so I think maybe she did think about it every time when she was with her mom, because that was like the at one point you find like when the dad's driving, it's them talking and drinking slushies and going places, and then when it's the mom, she's just looking out the window. Our narrator's just looking out the window, so maybe during those times she's watching for that rest stop every time they pass it. But yeah, that I thought the thing I was wondering too. I was like, it took a long time.
Yeah, because I would have been inquisitive as fuck. I would be annoying my parents the hell. I mean, because instead of like, because in a divorce you would always the children usually think it's their fault that the parents are splitting up. So instead of being haunted by that idea, that I kind of felt like this character probably could have, in order to avoid that, to ask what happened to her sister.
Yeah, I could see that.
Right?
And maybe it was just because of the way we kind of get this idea of them never taught, like he never or she never heard them talking about it, and it's just interesting at the beginning of the fact that they divorced so quick, and Orrin Grey brings up this divorce rates for couples who have lost a child, and it's supposed to be really low. And so she doesn't know, like, if there were problems, and this just spurred it on and everything like that. So maybe it was just the way their relationship, the three of them, and it just never was something that she would bring up.
Yeah, I also want to like point out like Orrin Gray's descriptions in just the beginning.
Oh yeah,
like such a creepy, really good creepy imagery. Like the end of the first paragraph, when it's just the small towns unmoored from the highway, like ships cast adrift on a fathomless sea of grain, with silos and black church steeples, their only masts.
Yeah,
like that's fucking great.
yeah.
But, like he describes like the branches of the tree in the golden sunlight and the skin flaying wind.
Yep.
Like Orrin Grey, he's a really great like puts you right in the scene. Like, you can feel, you can see, you can smell.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's like a perfect way to describe how, like, to get us to what happened and how it could happen in this place, is because it's just this deserted almost area, or it's just these small towns that have certain views on things, and I think even bringing up all the stuff that had happened in Kansas to kind of help set up this idea of this kind of emptiness that people fill with things and do certain things. I think it just, it was all to give us this idea of like, yeah, there could be this really crazy cult that did this really horrible thing. I mean, it even sets up to that story about the Oregon Trail people, which I think again gives us this idea. Well, in this story, it's not the Donner Party, but
true.
but the basic idea is the same almost. But again, to give us this idea of like, and I think it's to pick to highlight this Midwest. I don't know, Kansas is technically in the Midwest or just in the West, but this idea of to put Kansas as a place that nobody thinks about, and all these horrible things that could happen there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could agree. I can see that.
Yeah, same.
And then, yeah, I like the way he gives us this cult and how it's a little bit of our narrator doing all the research and giving us just little bits and pieces of what happened, and through her research, because she wanted to know everything she could about her sister, because she could barely remember. At one point we get an idea, the description of the sister is just freckles and a smile.
Yeah.
So I thought
you go.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think it's an interesting to show us this obsession of the cult just to get us to her one final time with us, like to remember her sister.
And I feel like part of the reason she's looking into the cult, like what you said, is kind of she's trying to understand what happened to her sister and come to terms with what happened to her sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like this whole story is just she just wants to understand where her sister went and what happened.
And along the way, we find out that there's a really crazy cult.
Yes. Which kind of gave me it felt like a mixture of a bunch of different like cult groups kind of combined.
Yes, that's exactly what I felt.
Like it had some Jim Jones vibes.
Mm-hmm.
It had some David Koresh vibes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it was interesting how they kind of took bits from different famous cults and kind of made something unique with them.
Yeah, but it also added its own touch to it. Like you can feel that it was, even though you've felt these kind of connections to these other cults, you also saw that he was also going his own way with it, especially with the leader wearing this cow skull as a helmet or like as a mask. I was like, yep, that's new.
Yeah. Especially considering that, it was a cow skull with, they took the horns off and then
and the teeth.
And the teeth. So it was just like this weird bug mask thing describes. I thought that was fun. And just like what I kept thinking of was, because I recently read it, was that Adam Neville's Last Days, which also dealt with a cult that kind of was doing some interesting things. And I kept kind of thinking about that with this. Not that they deal with the same thing, but just this idea of this kind of weirder cult than our normal cults. Not that cults can be normal, but you know what I mean.
That's just what the cults will say to you. What do you mean? We're normal.
We're perfectly normal.
Just as they're carving symbols into a human flesh.
Yeah.
These sigils are just nothing. They help us connect with the spheres.
Yeah,
it's for protection. We're doing it for the greater good.
They protect us from what's on the other side.
Yeah.
Now drink this Kool-Aid. It'll be fine.
Yes.
But what I love too was that we have this leader who wrote a book that was like this crazy manifesto basically, and I had to crack up was the fact that after after this event happened, some small publisher picked it back up and put it back out. I was like, oh, that's an interesting idea.
I like that it was all kind of like, it was like falling apart and like full of like typing errors. And
yeah.
It's like the publisher didn't think to go back in and clean it up. But that's okay.
Have you never heard of edit?
Yeah.
It's like, didn't want to get a second pair of eyes there? No? Okay.
I feel all that though makes it creepier.
Yes. Oh,
True.
totally.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the guy just felt like had the urge to put it out there as fast as possible.
Yeah, I was just like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah. But what really also made it even more creepier was like, oh wait, so he was actually onto something?
Yeah.
That was super creepy. I was like, oh shit.
Yes. Well, and that's exactly, I mean, like, I guess we're kind of now leading into spoiler territory. It's a shorter story, so we're going to get into spoilers.
Spoiler. You've been warned.
Yeah.
Can read it for free on Nightmare. Just go.
Yeah. And like we said, takes like 10, 15 minutes to read it. So you can do that really quick. But I love, like, we're getting, again, through these hints that she is, as she's researching. So she's getting the pictures, she's getting the police reports, and she's getting unofficial police reports and articles. And it's all about, like, they didn't find, like, which we didn't even say. So RV, like, stopped a bus. It was like a debate team. And that's where her sister was in this debate team. And so they took all of them to this rest stop. But the accounts we're getting are like, not all the bodies were found. There was cannibalism, but nobody found, like, they didn't find.
There were no human tissue in the stomach contents or anything like that.
Yeah. And like the cult, one report was that the cult, people in this cult had killed themselves before the victims were killed. So like you're getting all this just like
you're getting these weird creepy hints and you're like, nah, you should just step away.
Yeah. They're like, something bigger has happened here. And like, yeah, there's I love the idea of this rest stop with blood stains that they couldn't clean out. Clean up.
That's horrifying when you think about it.
Yeah.
It makes me think of the these rest stops, and then you think of these highway motels.
Yeah.
And you think of these mattresses that probably have this really dark stains there, and you're like, nope. Wait.
Hey, don't take a black light in there.
No. Don't use those blankets.
Nope. We're sleeping back.
Yes.
I love though when she gets to the rest stop and like
Yes.
it felt like not Hellraiser. It felt like Candyman vibes with like all the paintings on like the walls and stuff.
Yes.
It kind of reminded me of like the apartment in Candyman.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I love that because it's this whole idea of people going to visit this famous murder scene just to see what happens.
Because it is always that morbid curiosity would always lead you towards that.
Yeah.
And you can't you have to have like tremendous self-control to fight against it.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting it didn't like destroy that rest stop.
Yeah. I
like,
find that interesting too, but I think it might have to do with the fact that this is like on a triangle kind of shit place where they probably can't.
Yeah.
They probably maybe he Orrin didn't mention it in the story, but maybe the people tried to destroy it, but when they came back the next day, it was still standing there.
Yeah. Yeah, because like that's part of that like setup with that Oregon Trail people was like they went up there, didn't have a wagon wheel, so they put their broken wagon wheel down, drew all these lines, and they even talk about it being like a thin place and everything. So that totally makes sense. Like it just is always there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It definitely had this kind of vibes when you were. As soon as he stepped out of the rest stop and saw the RV, I was like, "Oh, you went.
Well,
you're in the outside place."
Yeah.
Like, all the trees are closing in on her, and she feels like she's in like a post-apocalyptic future.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she like just feels out of place, and she sees this RV, and she just runs to it because it's shelter.
Yeah.
But
and that like, and this is where I was trying like the surprising ending idea for me, and I was trying to figure out what all the spider imagery was about.
I think it was kind of dipping into Lovecraftian horror.
Okay.
that's what I think too, and I think it was kind of like atmosphere, like
Yeah, because you're always gonna be scared of big fucking spiders. I mean, as soon as he was trying to open the door to the restaurant, and it was like just filled with spider webs, I was like,
Yep.
I got the scene from Lord of the Rings. I'm like, nah, you get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
I love though was like just when they describe Damien when she goes inside the RV and she's like, inside was Damien Hesher. On his head, he wore the same cow skull, its teeth and horns missing, transforming it into something else. The helmet of a cyclops, the head of an insect. On his hands, he wore claws made of bones from small animals, the same claws he had used, according to the coroner's report, to tear out his own throat. Though I saw now that those claws were unstained by blood. His neck still a bloody ragged wound. Through something now moved inside it, working open and closed.
Yep.
And then also, eternity is a cruel thing are the only words he said to me, the sounds coming not from where his mouth should have been, but from the ragged hole in his neck. Then they came for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, that whole, and that's why I kept, again, to go back to the spider thing, because you got the spider webs, you got the trees that he describes as spider-like moving, and then to get to your scene, the trap door, like he's like, all these trap doors open up as if they were from webbing, and these legs would come out and grab people that reminded him of the trees, which reminded him of spiders. So I was like, trying to wrap my head around what that was all leading toward.
I think it's just like an introduction to the thin place.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah.
Which
it was also kind of bittersweet about the ending because even though she is in this nightmarish place, she sees her sister,
and her sister wasn't her sister is stuck in that place.
Yeah, she's stuck in that place.
Her sister still had the familial love for our character.
Yeah.
I felt
she's safe-ish.
Yeah.
But she can never come back.
Yeah. But I like how he had that bittersweet ending where the sister, like our narrator, got closure.
Yeah. Yeah.
She got to meet her sister. She's probably gonna need years of therapy for when.
But she's never gonna go on long trips unless it's on a flight.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like the really cool thing about this story is that that's what it's about. It's him and her and her sister, and the idea, all the cult stuff. Orrin Grey just teases and gives us these little hints, but then that's like it. Like you have no idea what actually happened or anything other than what we've seen, but it's such a bigger picture that we're just getting such a tiny part of. Which I think is perfect.
Yeah, I just really like the fact that, as you said, the big picture is basically this this female narrator trying to find out through her own terms what happened to her sister, and in between we get this kind of like bits and pieces of this cult and this Lovecraftian horror, and it just makes the story a lot more interesting and I can't say fun, but you know what I mean. You kind of get more hooked into it that way.
Yeah, definitely. Like I would I would
actually want an expansion of this.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love more of it.
Oh, it would be so cool. As perfect as this is, it's like, yeah, I want to know more of like, I just want to see more and where else this could go, because there's a lot that he hints at that we have no idea on.
Mm-hmm.
I also I would love a novel from Orrin Grey.
Yes.
But I don't know if we're gonna get one. He seems pretty content with the short stories that he's doing. Unless he might be working on one behind the scenes that we haven't heard.
True.
Maybe.
Just a little secret one.
He's just a wonderful short story writer.
Definitely.
He really is. Yeah, I need to read more stuff from him now. This is what I love about this podcast. I'm introduced to so many awesome things. And I'm like, expanding my mind.
And I don't know, Orrin Grey has a lot of different stuff out, but his collections are great. Yeah, you can't go wrong with any of his collections. I think we've talked this story up for our crowd.
Yeah, I think we have.
Where to read it. They should read it, and they should also get ready for our episode next week with our returning guest, Sean M. Thompson.
Woo!
Where we're going to be discussing Migrations by Nick and Costa. I think I pronounced his name wrong, but anyway. Sorry, Nick. I like your stuff a lot.
Sorry, Nick.
But it'll be a fun episode, and I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely.
And Vitlame, where can listeners get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me on Twitter at VitlameS. I'm currently kind of like on a hiatus with my booktube, Find Pipsqueak Reads, basically because I just want to finish writing this goddamn book of mine. And then when that's all done and on my computer, I can focus on reading more and reviewing more. And the same goes for my book talk account, Vitlame Mist. I'm basically on hiatus there because I need to finish this book. Almost there.
Understandable. And Matt, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter at BrandenburgDM.
You can find me on Twitter at Rudy53088. Also be sure to follow The Abyss with @IntoStaring. And this is Richard Gerlach saying keep staring.